Imagine stepping into a medieval town before dawn. The streets are narrow, damp, and uneven beneath your feet. The air smells of smoke, animal waste, wet wood, and human bodies layered in wool and linen. Water is not something you casually turn on. It must be carried, hauled, warmed, and rationed. For most people, full body washing is a rare event, not a routine. Instead, daily cleanliness means wiping hands and face with a cloth dipped in cold water, often reused until it stiffens with grime. Historical records from 14th century Europe show that a household might use the same basin of water for every family member, starting with the eldest or most important. Soap, when available, is harsh and lye-based, leaving skin raw. Hot water, when achieved, smells faintly metallic from iron pots and smoke. The sound of bathing is not splashing, but careful pouring. Water is precious. In winter, bathing becomes physically painful. Cold stone floors leach heat from bare feet, and steam quickly vanishes into freezing hair. This discomfort directly shapes behavior. People wash less because the experience itself feels dangerous. Cleanliness is not associated with comfort, but endurance. By the late Middle Ages, cleanliness becomes deeply entangled with fear. Medical theory, inherited from ancient sources, teaches that illness enters through open pores. Warm water, especially, is believed to loosen the skin's defenses. When plague outbreaks strike in the 14th and 17th centuries, bathing is quickly blamed. Cause and effect are misunderstood. People bathe less during epidemics, yet disease continues, reinforcing the belief that water itself is dangerous. Astrological calendars even advise when it is safe to wash. Certain days are thought to weaken the body's balance of humors. Physicians recommend dry rubbing instead of bathing, using cloths infused with herbs. Cleanliness becomes symbolic rather than physical. Sweet smells replace washed skin. This fear creates rituals. People carry pomanders filled with cloves or ambergris. Rooms are smoked with incense to clean the air. The belief system turns hygiene inward. Avoid water, guard the body, distrust sensation. Ironically, this fear accelerates the decline of shared bathing spaces, pushing society toward isolation rather than health. Cleanliness is never equal. In aristocratic households, servants heat water in copper vats, sometimes allowing nobles to bathe weekly, an unimaginable luxury for peasants. Linen undergarments are changed frequently, absorbing sweat and oils. This creates the illusion of cleanliness without touching the skin itself. Peasants, by contrast, own fewer clothes and wash them infrequently. Rivers and streams serve as seasonal bathing spots, usually in summer after harvest. Cold months erase even this option. Archaeological evidence from rural Europe shows combs and lice removal tools were more common than soap, revealing where effort was truly focused. Urban elites display cleanliness as status. Perfumed gloves, scented wigs, and powdered faces signal refinement. The cause and effect is clear. When water access defines class, hygiene becomes a marker of power, not health. The poor are labeled unclean, reinforcing social distance while ignoring structural scarcity. In ancient cities like those of the Roman world, cleanliness is communal. Public bathhouses operate as social centers, business hubs, and leisure spaces. Archaeological remains show complex heating systems, marble floors, and sequential rooms designed to guide the body through temperature changes. When these spaces disappear after political collapse, hygiene retreats into the home, but homes are not built for it. Medieval houses lack drainage, chimneys, and private rooms. Washing becomes fragmented. Hands here, feet there, face in another place. This spatial shift changes psychology. Cleanliness becomes private, hidden, even shameful. Public washing is associated with moral risk. The disappearance of shared spaces doesn't just remove infrastructure, it removes collective habits, replacing them with suspicion and silence. Religion reshapes hygiene without banning it outright. Christian teachings emphasize spiritual purity over bodily care. Monastic rules often allow bathing only on specific occasions, illness, travel, or ritual necessity. Excessive concern for the body is framed as vanity. Yet, monasteries preserve practical knowledge. Records show monks maintaining bathhouses, herb gardens, and water systems. The contradiction is striking. Personal restraint coexists with institutional cleanliness. In contrast, Islamic practice ties washing directly to faith. Ritual ablution requires flowing water before prayer. This demand encourages urban water infrastructure, fountains, and bathhouses. The result is visible: cities with cleaner streets, regular washing, and social norms built around water access. Belief shapes behavior, and behavior reshapes cities. Western Europe retreats from bathing between the 15th and 18th centuries, while the Islamic world maintains thriving bath cultures. Ottoman hammams evolve from Roman models, adapting heat and humidity to local preferences. Women, often restricted in public life, use hammams as social networks. In Eastern Europe, particularly in Slavic regions, steam bathing never disappears. Wooden bathhouses are cheap, flexible, and suited to cold climates. The intense heat followed by cold immersion becomes a seasonal ritual tied to health and endurance. These contrasts show cause and effect at a civilizational level. Where water systems survive, hygiene traditions continue. Where they collapse, fear fills the gap. Cleanliness follows the calendar. Summer allows river bathing, airing of clothes, and sun-drying linens that kill parasites. Winter forces restraint. Water freezes. Fires are reserved for cooking, not comfort. Bathing becomes rare and strategic. Morning routines involve washing hands before meals, often in shared bowls. Feet are washed at night to remove the day's dust. Hair is combed daily, not for style but survival. Lice spread rapidly without it. Seasonal festivals often include washing rituals, blending hygiene with celebration. These moments provide rare, full-body cleansing, anchoring cleanliness to time rather than habit. The idea that medieval people never washed is false. They washed selectively, strategically, and according to belief. Cleanliness existed, but it looked different. Clothing mattered more than skin. Smell mattered more than microbes. Another myth is that religion alone caused decline. In reality, infrastructure collapse, fuel scarcity, and epidemic trauma play larger roles. When water becomes risky, culture adapts to avoid it. Understanding this reframes the past. Hygiene is not ignorance, it is negotiation with limits. Modern hygiene emerges slowly. Plumbing returns first to palaces, then cities. Medical science redefines cleanliness from moral behavior to biological protection. By the 19th century, reformers linked disease to contaminated water, reversing centuries of fear. Bathrooms re-enter homes, not as luxury, but necessity. Soap becomes gentler. Water heats reliably. Cleanliness shifts from seasonal event to daily routine. The cause and effect is profound. When infrastructure stabilizes, belief follows. Hygiene stops being feared and becomes invisible, automatic, and expected. As cities grew denser, cleanliness stopped being only a personal matter. It became something authorities tried to regulate. By the late medieval period, town councils across Europe issued rules about waste disposal, water access, and even how often butchers could rinse their stalls. These laws were not about comfort, they were about order. Smell, noise, and visible filth were seen as threats to stability. Public wells were locked at night. Fines were imposed for dumping refuse near streets. In some cities, specific hours were assigned for carrying waste outside the walls. The soundscape of hygiene changed. Carts rattling before dawn, bells signaling cleanup times, guards shouting warnings. Cleanliness became enforced through fear of punishment, not understanding of disease. Yet, enforcement often failed. Without sewers, waste returned through rain and runoff. The cause and effect was brutal. More rules, but no infrastructure. Authorities could control behavior, but not bacteria. This mismatch created frustration and blame, often directed at the poor, migrants, or outsiders labeled as unclean, deepening social division rather than improving health. Before microscopes, people judged cleanliness with their senses. Smell mattered most. a clean place was one that did not offend the nose. This belief shaped daily habits. Floors were strewn with herbs like rosemary and rushes to mask odors. Clothing was perfumed, not washed. Walls were hung with tapestries to absorb dampness and sound. Sound also played a role. Flowing water was associated with purity because it could be heard moving. Stagnant water was silent and therefore suspect. Fountains became symbols of health, not because they were clean, but because they sounded alive. The cause and effect here is subtle but powerful. When smell defines hygiene, solutions focus on masking rather than removal. This is why perfume industries flourished long before plumbing did. Cleanliness became aesthetic. The body itself remained largely untouched, wrapped in layers of fabric and scent, creating a sensory illusion of order over decay. Hygiene labor is rarely documented, but it is everywhere. In most households, women are responsible for water collection, heating, laundry, and cleaning. This work is physically exhausting. Historical accounts describe laundry days lasting from sunrise to dusk, hands cracked from cold water and harsh soap. Washing clothes is harder than washing bodies. Heavy garments must be beaten, boiled, wrung, and dried. In winter, frozen fabric cracks when folded. The smell of wet wool fills courtyards. Steam rises from cauldrons, mixing with ash and smoke. This labor shapes social life. Washing days become communal, filled with conversation, complaints, and shared rhythms. The cause and effect is clear. When hygiene depends on manual labor, it limits frequency. Cleanliness becomes episodic, not constant. This also explains why body washing declines while clothing care persists. The visible layer matters most because it is what others see and judge. Each epidemic forces a re-evaluation. After repeated outbreaks, some cities begin experimenting. Wooden pipes appear, covered drains are tested, bathhouses reopen briefly, then close again. Progress is uneven and fragile. By the 18th century, scientific thinking slowly shifts blame from water to contamination. Doctors begin recommending fresh air, cleaner streets, and eventually regular washing. The sound of running water returns, not as luxury, but as defense. This transition is not dramatic, it is cautious. People test new habits slowly, haunted by centuries of fear. But once water proves safer than superstition, the change accelerates. Hygiene moves from belief to routine, from ritual to infrastructure.